Welcome everyone, everyone here that's in the room, as well as those of you who have joined us online. Thrilled to be kicking off the Flagship Studios here live from Union Square in San Francisco at the beginning of JP Morgan conference. And all week we'll be hosting various talks and panels and fireside chats with members of both the Flagship ecosystem, but well as other industry luminaries, and to really talk about innovation and how we can take bigger leaps in advancing to improved human therapeutics. So very excited. My name is Paul Biondi. I am an executive partner at Flagship, as well as the president of Pioneering Medicines. Pioneering Medicines is a strategic initiative that we launched at Flagship to basically conceive and develop a unique portfolio of novel therapeutics that unlock and leverage more broadly the bioplatforms that we have founded here at Flagship. I'm very pleased to welcome with me here today Uli Stilz. Uli is the vice president and head of the Novo Nordisk Bio Innovation Hub based in Cambridge. And I've had the pleasure with my team of partnering with Uli over this past year. And we wanted to get together and really kind of reflect on both how that partnership has gone, what we've learned from it, but also reflect, I think, on the value of partnership and fostering innovation in the industry. So why don't I open up, Uli, and why don't you tell us a little bit about the Bio Innovation Hub, the vision for your organization, and more broadly, how that fits into the vision of your innovation strategy at Novo.
Thank you, Paul, for having me. It's a real pleasure to be with you here today. Now, I would like to start off. I'm coming from a multinational corporation with a large R&D organization, and with the Bio Innovation Hub, I feel really privileged to have been given the opportunity to create an R&D unit in Cambridge with a very high level of autonomy and freedom, and that actually enables us to go on a journey to bring forward projects and ideas on a fast decision track. And that, I think, has been for us vitally important, how we designed the unit, also in the partnership with you. At the same time, while we have this agility, we are still very well connected to the Novo Nordisk R&D organization, so that we can tap into the broad, deep expertise in Novo Nordisk. So that's for us a really important part of how we designed this unit. Yep. Now, if I would like to use an image, over so many years in a corporation, I was used to walk along hallways. And oftentimes long hallways, at the end was a door. Mm-hmm. And now this Bio Innovation Hub feels so different. It feels like very nimble. We can maneuver, we can go forward, we can turn around and go backward. We can open doors left and right. And by opening doors, I also mean as an image that we invite people into it. And that is for me so important, that we really closely work together and collaborate and bring different expertise together, so that we, by blending those expertise, can fundamentally create something new, which none of the two parties likely could do alone. So that's how we designed the unit. So conceptually, the Bio Innovation Hub is an R&D unit to fund projects, but more important, to bridge between partners, to insert our expertise and blend it with the expertise of partners to send what I would like to call co-create, where something really fundamental novel can happen. And when we then have co-created a new concept, a therapeutic concept, that we are also designed as a unit that we can accelerate. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, we want to bring it as fast as possible so that humans suffering from conditions can benefit.
That's great. I mean, I think one of the things that was really motivating to us in wanting to work with you and your team was sort of the parallelism between our two organizations, in that, we both started up. You started up at the end of 2019, we started up in 2020, and I think this idea of, really trying to say, hey, how could we have two kind of innovative units coming together, working, in proximity, which is nice, within Cambridge, Massachusetts, to really think differently about, hey, how could we leverage the expertise? I think that you and your ability to tap into Novo, I think in a unique way versus us if we had just tried to do it kind of, directly to as you said, a very broad organization. and the nimbleness of both our units, but bringing very, I think, complementary but different skill sets and perspectives. So that's, I think, one of the things that was appealing to us in putting this together. So we launched this partnership in May of this past year, and I would love to get from you your thoughts around, hey, share with us what the collaboration really means to you, as well as talk a little bit about the motivations and sort of this kind of innovative partnership and how you think it can contribute, specifically to what Novo is trying to do.
Yeah. We are so enthusiastic and excited to have formed a partnership with you where two very complementary innovation ecosystems have come together. That was from the starting point where we felt there is such a strong strategic fit. And to be a bit more specific here, we feel like in Novo, we bring this deep disease area expertise and understanding of what do those people living with those chronic conditions actually need. What do we need to do to improve their life? And you on the flagship side, you bring this remarkable ability to create the next generation bioplatforms, which can either help us to understand biology in a different way, also in the intersection with AI, machine learning, data science, or to form the next platforms and modalities which would allow us to go after biology. We may not have the tools today. And so I think that we felt there is a real tremendous synergy between the two organizations. Now to make it, give you an example, we started, of course, to brainstorm together, to develop ideas, to help solve some of the issues patients are facing with NASH, liver disease. And now we already have a collaboration with one of the flagship platform companies. And that we believe will help us to find some new intervention points we don't even know about today. So really explore completely new biology together. But at the same time, how we have designed the partnership, we will be able to bring other flagship companies into this enterprise. Yep. So that we not only find intervention points in biology, but that we could also bring in companies with other resources, skills, capabilities. So for instance, new modalities to go after new biology where we may otherwise not have the tools. And so that we can actually create an ecosystem with a number of companies contributing to find something transformative. Actually, particularly in this advanced NASH stage where it's an inflammatory fibrotic process, to find new angles to stop the disease or hopefully even reverse the disease, which we cannot do today. And so we are so excited about this, and we feel that is something we couldn't do in another framework. So of course we can make a more classical partnership with one single company, but then we get one skill and one capability. Here we can access multiple skills, and for a complex problem like this, we feel this is really transformative. And in a way, I feel like a really new model of a partnership which has not existed before in this way.
Yeah, I think and we feel very similarly. I think the novelty of the getting together to say, hey, how could we jointly explore a disease, really leverage, I think, a lot of what you bring from Novo Nordisk, both the insight, I think, on a scientific biological level into the diseases, like all the, like you said, obesity and NASH, other areas of cardiometabolic diseases, but also a lot of the insights that I think your organization brings in terms of really understanding kind of like, hey, what do those patients need? What are those physicians looking for? And sort of designing really innovative new therapeutics. Because that, one of the things that I think was appealing to us, which is this idea, a lot of the innovation that we have founded in the bioplatforms we have, is focused in specialty diseases. And it's difficult for small companies to go after these larger patient populations that you see in cardiometabolic disease. Mm-hmm. And so that was really exciting too, because these platforms could really be broadly applied. And there's no reason that they have to be just in oncology or rare disease or those places. And it's fantastic, the innovation in those spaces. But, I think in seeing that you guys have done, in the obesity space and in the diabetes space, to say, hey, could we tap in with these novel, as you said, modalities and biology to really say we can create, some novel new mechanisms and modalities that wouldn't otherwise, I think, come to light, or wouldn't come to light in the time frame that we think that they should happen with a sense of urgency.
Yeah. I just would like to add one thought here. I gave you now this example of NASH. reality is I could give you many more examples, what we started working together. But there, I feel like, just grab me after this meeting, and I can tell you a lot more.
Yeah, so that's an encouragement to all of our CEOs and across our ecosystem to talk to Uli about this. So, and we'd be thrilled about that. And I think we're making good progress, right? So we've got a couple programs already that we've identified and that we're starting to kind of initiate. And but why don't you reflect a little bit? So we've been doing this for about 8 months now in the partnership. What are some of the learnings you've taken away? What are the things that perhaps has maybe even surprised you the most in the collaboration?
Yeah, I would start, Paul, on this notion over this, fairly short period of 8 months. We have developed, quite, a potpourri of exciting new product concepts, where I feel like this is really exciting science. This could be, if it, pans out as we progress, it could be really transformative. So that is super exciting. At the same time, I would say that's not really what excited me, because that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, fair enough.
But what really surprised me is actually how quickly our teams, your team and my team, developed trust and came into a working mode where I feel when I see them talking to each other, they are laughing, they have fun, they enjoy being together. There is such a high level of energy between the two teams. That has surprised me that this happened so fast, and provided a flow of ideas which we can now follow on. So I think that was for me the most remarkable, because I feel like, the two organizations are so very different. And that makes it also so exciting, because you have a very different culture and way to go about things than we do. And I always felt like if we can get this to work, it will be remarkable. But maybe I can give this question back to you. What was most surprising for you, Paul?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that. I think there are a couple things. One is I give a lot of credit to Marcus Schindler, who obviously runs the kind of research and early development at Novo, and his pushing and driving for us to really try to do something transformative, and his willingness to take risk and really try to be innovative, and specifically through this partnership where he said, hey, we want to do this in a way that's very different from how we would do it internally. So that was one. I think the second is what you brought up, like this element of how quickly our teams have come together. Mm-hmm. I think the welcomeness in trying to be innovative. At the same time, I think, one of the things that's been really great is the directness, the kind of the rigorous debate that we've had, the willingness to say, hey, we see it very differently than how you guys see it. And through that, I think those differing views, we've come up to a better place in trying to come up with these new concepts for new medicines. So that's I think that aspect is built upon the trust that you mentioned, because with that trust, I think there's a willingness to kind of have those honest dialogues around the science, which is terrific. Why don't we look ahead a little bit? What are you excited about for now this coming year? We've kind of ramped up, I think, over the last 8 months. How do you see it playing out over 23?
Now, I think we have now a number of really exciting product concepts, ideas, to see them move into a full research collaboration with a number of different flagship companies. So that's one thing I would like to see in 23. So that really transformative ideas get tangible and start moving towards an IND, towards the clinic. So that's one piece I'm really excited about. But maybe what I'm most excited about, Paul, is that this partnership is so vibrant, so creative, that I personally feel I have no idea what we will be discussing in 12 months from now. And that in itself is really so promising, that we know and have a good feeling that we will have very novel ideas when we sit together in 12 months from now.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what it will be, but I'm curious to find out.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, when I look at it, I think because we built the trust, I think we have a foundation. We've done this process of what we call joint explorations, where we take a disease, jointly talk about where are the areas of unmet medical need, how is it that the bioplatforms within the Flagship ecosystem could uniquely unlock kind of a product concept. And I think that the speed by which we've done that and some of the diversity of it is allowing us to really move quickly. I think if we can bring forward the first couple of programs, and I think it'll be exciting to show our ecosystem kind of the value to those bioplatforms, as well as in the kind of three-way partnership here of Pioneering Medicines working with the Bio Innovation Hub, you pulling in the broader Novo resources, and our teams at our companies really getting the benefit of that three-way partnership. So I think it'll be exciting. We'll have, I think, multiple programs up and running by the end of the year, and as you're saying, kind of a runway of hey, future things that we have on deck that we want to get our companies excited about working on. Let me then flip over a little bit and just talk more broadly. So we're here at JP Morgan. It's always an exciting time. One of the first times we're all back in person after COVID. And you've worked, and I have both worked in the pharma and biotech industries for many years, and it's been interesting to see the importance of both partnerships and collaborations in this, and we both kind of focused on that. How do you see, now that you've interacted quite a bit, not just with our companies, but the broader ecosystem, how do you see the biotech industry evolving around the whole partnership collaboration space, and in particular how you see Novo's strategy even adapting and evolving to that?
Mm-hmm. I think, first of all, I would say the industry is so different now, and the whole ecosystem, than when I joined the industry 30 years ago. And what I continue to be amazed is the number of tools and capabilities we have developed over this 30-year journey, where 30 years ago we were mostly or exclusively small molecules and very rudimental tools to understand biology. And now we have a very broad set of tools to not only understand biology, but also we start to build a piano of different tools to intervene in a very different way. And so over a 5, 10, 15-year journey, we have actually developed an instrumental of tools where I felt like, in the pandemic in 2020, when this was hitting us in January, February, most would not have expected that a year later we would have a vaccine. And the reality is that actually this happened. And it happened because there was a huge investment in technology and capabilities over a 10-year period. And also it happened because then there was a willingness to really make things happen and get to quick agreements and not negotiate it about small details for many years. So I think the pandemic has kind of been really instrumental in terms of what this community is able to do in a really unique way. And it changed life for all of us, because at the end now we got out of this pandemic and could protect many humans with those vaccines, which I think was remarkable. Now, if from there, as an outset, I would say, key trends, I would like to talk to three, items and trends I think are really important. First one is, everything in my mind starts with understanding human disease. What is it?
Yeah.
And this human disease and human body is so complicated. Some things, of course, where we initially could innovate is where some fundamental mechanisms like blood pressure. But as we got to more sophisticated parts of biology, immunology, and if you think about the human brain, the biology is so complex and the human biology is so different from what we have in animals, that understanding human biology has become so center stage in terms of progressing and finding new treatments. And there I personally feel the big integrated pharma companies can really make an important contribution to this ecosystem, because they are close to the people suffering from those diseases, because they are in the market. They have, in many cases, a consistent long-term commitment to therapy areas and can build in this way a very deep expertise in disease areas. And they run these large clinical trials where they actually get a response and can learn from clinical trials and be able to integrate, and data science should enable this. So I would hope Big Pharma can be a real contributor on this translational journey, understanding human disease at a different level. Then the second piece, I would say, biotech will continue to push the envelope. to create next generation platforms in 2 dimensions. One dimension to integrate biology with data science to understand disease processes, and that we see now in some companies, and also you in Flagship have created companies who focus on those kind of questions. Single cell sequencing has become really critically important, and the data flow we have now is enabling us to do things we would only have dreamed about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, one important piece. And the other piece where I hope biotech will continue to push is to continue the journey to innovate new modalities.
Yeah.
And I grew up with small molecule discoveries. That's what we could do in the 90s. And it was hugely successful and provided treatments. At the same time, I would say small molecules, they need a hydrophobic pocket, and they are not a really good tool for gain of function activities. And now all of a sudden we see modalities which enable us to actually go also after targets which are in the membrane, after targets which may not have a hydrophobic pocket and are actually not amenable to the small molecule. So we can complement now small molecules, and we can go and have gain of function. So we can complement small molecules in a unique way. And over time, I could actually imagine as those and in my mind, we are only at the beginning, because it's just a starting point to get those modalities, and we can deliver it to certain tissues, but to many tissues we can't really effectively. So there's a long journey ahead of us to develop this sophistication. But if we are successful, what I strongly believe we will be over time, I would even think we will go on a journey to replace small molecules. Simply because I believe, I work long in small molecules and they are never really 100% selective. That's an illusion.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's not enough information coded into the small molecules. So there will always be some side effects. If we really become precision medicine focused, then this journey of more genetic programmable medicines, where I hope biotech will push it. And then to your question, partnering, then you have an ecosystem, pharma deeply understanding disease, hopefully, and emerging capabilities in biotech, and to bring those together for a really innovative ecosystem, that I think will be a key in the ecosystem. Now, the third comment I would like to make is also the emphasis I think we need in the community between this crossover between science and business. And that I think is really vitally important, that actually new questions can be answered by bringing different entities together. But to bring different entities together, we also need to be creative on the business side. And I think, Paul, what we created a framework of a partnership which is really novel, which enabled us not to only work with one company, but with multiple, to bring a big pharma company together with an innovator like Flagship, which entertains a whole innovation ecosystem of different companies. So that is really novel in terms of how to think about how to partner. And we both know, we discussed for quite some time to get the framework. And I think we had the wisdom to say we don't want to solve everything now, but let's be adaptable and agile and build trust. And then, over time evolve how we actually work together, and also share then the business value. So I think that's important. We in the Bio Innovation Hub, we are really trying to do both exciting new science, and then think about business and new models of engagement. So I just want to cite one example here. We created a new engagement model, which we at the end called co-creation greenhouse. And it got this title greenhouse because we felt oftentimes there is a new idea, can be in a young company, can be in an academic lab, and it sits there and it doesn't start a translation journey, because either the entity doesn't have the funding or the insight what problem could actually be solved with this idea. And so we felt, and oftentimes I had seen, us and others looking at those things and then saying, that's too early, right? Okay, you can come back in a year from now when you have more data. But then a year later, there were not more data because it didn't really. So we felt we have to help this. And so we designed the models that we would provide input in terms of insight. What is a real life problem which could be solved with this idea? Then we provide funding to accelerate it. And we called it greenhouse because we said, there is a gap between this idea and that it actually gets realized. And if in between would be a flower, right? and a little bit water sprinkled on it, and something could happen. And so we decided to actually be driven by generosity and to implement this model without making any contracts. So we provide the funding, we provide the expertise, we sometimes even provide lab capacity in Novo, but we don't make a contract, we don't bind this entity to us. But that has led to a situation that now a number of those greenhouses we started, we have actually from first meeting the partner and the idea to starting something in the labs that it just took 2 weeks.
Yeah, isn't that amazing, right?
And so I think at the same time, all of those partners we have worked in this model, none of them at the end of the day, you know, were running away from us, right? Because when it was exciting, we could work with them, continue the journey, but we did not spend half a year or a year to negotiate a contract before we did exciting science.
Well, that's great. I think a number of the themes that you just brought up resonate to us. Recently, last night, Nubar hosted a dialogue with Albert Bourla, the chairman and CEO at Pfizer. And, you know, they brought up, you know, it's just a terrific thing between the chairman of Moderna and then, you know, Pfizer around reflecting on what the pandemic, you know, what we were able to do as an industry to the pandemic, and not losing sight of like, hey, we did some unreasonable things there that then but how quickly we can, you know, go back to just doing things the way we've done them. And I think that would be, you know, they were both making the point that would be a really wasted opportunity. And I think reflecting on sort of, as terrible as the pandemic was for society, what the biotech industry and pharma industry could do, and not forgetting those lessons, you know, about really pushing to something that nobody thought really could be done. Yeah. I think that's one piece. The second that you brought up, I think, around, you know, I think it's almost with all of the modalities now, all the different platforms that are capable, right? And when I was at Bristol Myers, you know, we only had 2 as well. We had mAbs and we had small molecules, but now, you know, there's, you know, almost up to, you know, like a dozen different validated platforms that you could do therapeutics on. I think it's impossible for any one large company to feel like they would have the expertise in that. So the only way you're going to unlock, I think, new innovative medicines is to figure out a way to partner. And your last point is a really good one, which is, it's ironic to me, having seen both the science side and the kind of business side, which is actually the innovation on the business side has not kept pace with the science. You know, we're still using very similar deal constructs, and you know, it's amazing how we can get slowed down and just trying to figure those out. So I think those, you know, are hopefully things that, you know, we can show a path forward, I think, in our partnership around, hey, here's an innovative way in which both an innovative deal framework and collaboration framework, as well as a way for, you know, a large company like Novo Nordisk to really unlock a lot of technology and capability and for our companies too, that they couldn't get after, and that synergy. So we're here at JP Morgan. You know, there are, I would say, in the industry, both detractors of this meeting and fans of this meeting. What's your perspective on that? You know, you and I were talking a little bit before we sat down about this. I personally think this is a great opportunity, but I'm a huge extrovert. How do you think about it? What's the value of this meeting, and what do you get out of it?
Now, Paul, I have to admit I'm an extrovert as well. So of course it's for me always wonderful to meet in person. And you know, I felt like the last 2 years where we met online that was a lot less enjoyable than now. You know, that we sit here together today in person. But, you know, I perceive this JP Morgan like, you know, the Okavango Delta, right? A lot of people coming together with different interests, backgrounds, but all having the same goal of, you know, learning about new scientific and business opportunities. So that's maybe one of my perspectives here. So, and that's why I'm here. Yeah. Right. So I spend a week here because I want to meet people. I want to learn about new companies. I want to learn about what those companies are doing, and then starting a brainstorming exercise. How could, you know, what those companies are doing and what we know about certain disease processes, is there something fundamentally novel we could do together? So I'm personally not looking here for already science which has been created, but for can we actually do something transformative together and find partners and ideas for this. And then my spirit is, now we sit here together, but it's really, important for me to let everyone know, I made this comment before. I appreciate, when you reach out to me and, grab me here and say, I want to know more what you do and what could be important to do together.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I reflect back on what you said earlier around our relationship, around the importance of trust, right? And I think that's so critical. You build trust, I think, through people knowing each other, both professionally and somewhat personally, so that, and that I think is ultimately kind of what can unlock innovation, because you have to be able to get to that level of trust between, people, between organizations, to really willing to take the risks I think are involved in coming up with transformative medicines in our industry. And I feel like we've achieved that, even after, we interacted a lot prior to setting up the framework, but I think in the last 8 months, it's only been accelerated. And, events like this, I think, allow for that. It allows the serendipity, one, of meeting people and sparking of ideas. But, to what we said before, collaborations are going to be the way in which innovation happens, I think, in the industry going forward. So, getting together in person is, I think, an incredibly important aspect of it. This is not the only opportunity, but it's a great one to kick off the year. And I think everybody's excited about hopefully what the year can bring, and hopefully maybe a change in the sentiments in the markets as well. But there's certainly great science that's going to happen regardless. And I'm excited about, what we can do together. Any final thoughts before we kind of wrap it up?
Final thought, Paul, it has been such an exciting journey over the last 12 months, and I'm really looking forward to 23 for things to happen and to spend now a few days here with all of you at GP Morgan. Thanks.
Well, likewise. Yeah. I want to thank you and your personal leadership in both making the collaboration happen between our two organizations and your leadership into it. You have a great team, and I think our team and our companies love interacting, with you and the broader Novo organization. And I'm excited to come back next year, do the same thing, and we can talk about, the multitude of, different products that we are developing together, and to really help and improve patients with cardiometabolic diseases. So,
and Paul, that's certainly a shared sentiment on our side. We feel very strongly with Flagship. We have a fantastic partner, and so much positive energy between the two organizations. That's really fun to see and to be part of. And thanks to you.
Well, great. Sure. Yeah, we've got time. Yeah. Volker, please.
Well, great. So we just talked earlier, really, really impressed by the perspective you're taking that Novo has got to creating new models about innovating. I'm just wondering, one of the challenges, and also from a big pharma Pfizer guy, 15 years in innovation hubs, is, you talk great about the Flagship, you also talk great about, which I love, your greenhouse idea.
Yeah.
How do you go about decision making? In the sense of, you're creating a lot of new models and a lot of new ideas in the sense of how you innovate. How do you actually go with your organization about where do you push, where do you go fast, or where do you go fast and no decisions, in the sense where you enrich all of those opportunities and different models would be an interesting question to me.
Yeah.
So for those who didn't hear the first part of the question, Volker was asking a question about decision making and how you think about decision making and trying to foster.
Changing the fast-paced environment, but not innovating so many different models.
Yeah, I think there is a number of elements to decision making. Decision making in a unit like the Bio Innovation Hub in terms of priorities. There, of course, we work under a corporate priorities in terms of disease and therapy areas, but that, of course, does not answer the specific question about a specific idea. Then it comes, I think, in our partnership, it comes to joint decision making, which I think is really important, that not one side decides for the other, but that we get our brains together to think about, here's an exciting idea, how can we progress it? And Paul talked a little bit about it, that, we actually wrote a manifesto for this partnership. What are the key ways how we want to decide and actually behave towards risk and decision making? So that actually all the viewpoints get on the table, and we start as a leadership team synthesizing to make the decisions in taking into account all the insights. So that's one piece in the partnership. Then, of course, there is a Novo internal decision making where it's really important for me that we have designed the Bio Innovation Hub basically biotech-like, and in a way My job is like a mini CEO job, but I have a board. I have an internal board. Markus is chairing the board, so there is a really direct link to Novo CSO in terms of decision making, that when we decide and embark on something, that it's not happening in a vacuum. Because at the end of the day, when it progresses and moves towards an IND or early clinical, at some point I expect all of this to be internalized in Novo, certainly when it comes to late stage phase 3 clinical trials. And so then there must be uptake. And so that there is a continuous discussion, continuous diligence of how the science progresses, and then the organization is also ready to take it up. That I think is for me really important. And we had the side conversation before here when we started to build the Bio Innovation Hub. I took great care that a part of the scientists are actually coming from Denmark, from headquarters. And that was a really important design principle, not because I would believe in Boston we don't find fantastic scientists, but because I felt connectivity and cultural understanding and connectivity into the headquarters is widely important to later facilitate not only tapping into knowledge, but also to help uptake later.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen actually, it's a great concept, the Bio Innovation Hub, I think, within Novo, and the ability for you to almost advocate and challenge for a different way of thinking. I mean, clearly you have the support of Markus, and he's trying to really, change the mindset and try to kind of advance how R&D and innovation is done at Novo. But having a group like Uli's, that's because they're in our ecosystem, not just with us, but also more broadly in Cambridge. I think that sense of you're not constrained by everything that happens when you're just in headquarters or in the central unit, which what you're used to from your days in large pharma, and I as well. And I think that advocacy of reminding and challenging people and being in a position to do that, to say, hey, do we really need to do it this way, or like why couldn't we do it? What they're advocating or what they're suggesting, and we've had really good discussions in this manifesto, which I think sometimes you can put these things on paper and they you put it in the drawer and nobody ever goes back to it. But I think we've really been trying to go back to it and say, hey, okay, we have a disagreement here. This is what we said we would do. And, we've done things where we say, okay, here's what one team thinks, here's what the other team thinks. Let's really debate that. And got to, I think, a much better place. So I do think the innovation of the organization that you put in place, is a real, I think, accelerative innovation, for you. And I think it'll pay off. Okay, any other questions out there? Thank you for asking the question, Borg. Well, with that being said, again, Uli, I want to thank you for coming, and thank everybody here in the audience and everyone online.
Thanks for having me, Paul.